Hey guys, it's How That Happened. Today we're going to be going over the boss rush. This is a new thing that's part of the collab. Going to go over the units and then we'll talk about how to beat the bosses. First up, just wanted to mention I was lucky enough to get rank 45 on global server. I was not intending to try to get on the leaderboard. This is actually my first time being on any leaderboard in Summer's War. But I was doing a boss rush last night later at night, and I realized, hey, not a lot of people have done wave 50. And actually, when I checked at midnight last night, 68 people had completed wave 50. Now, of course, there's more than that. There's over 100, I think. But less than 70 people had completed boss rush on global server as of midnight last night. So I'm assuming a lot of people have not done this yet. They're going to need, or maybe they don't need it, but they might be interested in how to do boss rush. So this is the team that I used. I know it's not free to play. I am, however, a free to play Summoner's War player. I just got a little bit lucky with a couple LDs. So the first thing you're going to want is a reviver. I think it helped a lot for wave 41 to 50. You don't necessarily, in my opinion, need a reviver for the lower level stages. You should be fine without one. So these are the runes that I'm using on him. He does have a revive on skill 3, as well as soul protection and 15% decreased damage on other units when this is on cooldown. That's really nice. Skill 2 does damage based on his max HP. It does ignore defense, so that's kind of nice for some of the bosses. Some of the bosses don't have a ton of HP, they have a lot of defense, and this can do a lot of damage to those bosses. Skill 1 doesn't really matter for him on this encounter. The best healer, in my opinion, is Alaya, because she has defense buff. So she has 2 skills with defense buff. Basically, you're going to have defense buff the whole time. In my opinion, if you have this unit, you're going to want to use her for this week's boss rush and probably future week's boss rushes. I think this is probably one of the best, if not the best healers that are currently available in the game. So if you have this unit, you're going to want to use this unit. The next slot is basically a unit that's going to be able to kill the side towers. It could be Amber. It could potentially be a dot unit like Rika or Melia or whatever dot unit what you want to use. This is kind of a side tower killer. These are the runes that I have on her. I did 6-star her just for this content because I felt like trying it. She worked out alright, so she does not have skill ups. So you can definitely use her without skill ups. It's probably going to be a little bit easier if you have them. Perna is fantastic, mainly for the passive. You want that extra healing. She can also do damage based on HP, so she can do decent damage sometimes. This is how I have her built. One of the more important things about how I have her built is she's attack HP. Normally, I run Perna attack crit damage HP, but I found that without a second HP slot, she's not tanky enough to survive. And specifically on the third boss, which is the water boss, he gets an extra turn when someone dies, and that's actually what killed me. So that's why I put more HP on my Perna. Kiki, the main reason to run her, she's an attack breaker, she is a defense breaker, and she has most of the debuffs that you could ever want. I know that a lot of people are not going to have her, but I think she's fantastic for this type of stuff. I also use her in Labyrinth against Tartarus. I think she's really good in that situation as well. So what are some replacements? You may not have all these units. That's perfectly okay. So we'll start with the Reviver. There's a lot of Revivers in this game. The ones that I would consider, I would not consider any of the fire units. I would not really consider any of the water units. There's 3 wind units that I would consider. Tyrannus, he can revive himself, he can revive someone else, so if something goes wrong and he dies, he revives himself. For a reviver, I think that's really important. That's one of the reasons Nigong is good. When he puts up his skill 3, he can revive himself. So if things go bad, he can come back to life. So I think Tyrannus is good for that. Eladriel is similar. When he revives someone, he puts on soul protection for himself. So he has a revive skill that also somewhat protects himself. Briand is also an interesting option. The main reason I would consider Briand for this type of thing is that he has an attack break. I do think attack break is very important for these fights. Some of these bosses hit really hard, and being able to reduce their damage with an attack break is very helpful. So I think if you're struggling to fit in someone that has attack break, he might be a decent option. I have not tried any of these units myself, so these are suggestions of things you could try. So I don't know how well he would actually work in practice, but in theory, he should be a decent unit. If you have Amarna, he's a pretty good unit. The only downside is he has terrible base stats. He cannot revive himself, which is the other downside. He only can revive other people when he's alive. So that's why his base stats being terrible are kind of a problem. He does have a branding and he has a defense break. So that's why he's a good unit. He has both of those. Probably another unit I would choose if I had it, and I did not have Nigong, would be Beta. Beta has a heal, crit resist, and immunity. Immunity is very helpful for some of these fights. And also, of course, the revive. So I think if you have Beta, I think she's definitely a option that you can go with. I think she's a definite solid option. So for healers, I already talked about the fact that I think Alaya is the best. If you have her, you're going to use her for this week and probably future weeks for boss rush. I think she is 100% go-to healer if you have her. Another option, of course, is going to be Riley. She's very similar, but she does not have defense buff. That is the problem. So if you do not have Alaya, you're going to want to potentially consider a defense buffer, someone like Shannon. Shannon also has the speed slow, which will help you on some of the bosses to help slow down the side towers and potentially the boss itself. And she also has glancing hit. Some of these bosses cannot glance, such as Jogo. He becomes immune against attack bar decreasing and glancing hit, so he cannot glance. So, well, actually, I think he can glance. He just cannot be affected by glancing hit. So he's a fire unit. If you have a water unit, I think he can glance, but he cannot be affected by a glancing hit debuff. So I think Shannon's good. The only problem with running Riley and Shannon is that you're using 2 slots to do what 1 unit could have done. So you're using 2 slots to get heals and defense buff when you could have just used Alaya. So that's kind of the downside, is that, in my opinion, Alaya is the best. So I already kind of touched on replacements for Amber. I tried out Melia. The way that I have her built is too squishy. She needs more HP and defense. She also needs to be skilled up. I don't have her skilled up because I never did. But she does do good dot damage. So you could potentially use Melia to help you kill the side towers. You could also use units like Rika, anybody else that does dot damage. Replacements for Perna, you could try like another healer. She doesn't really do that much damage on this build. So you could maybe try a different healer. You know, maybe this is a spot where you put your Shannon, but then you're going to want some other sort of healing, I think, somewhere. Not 100% sure who I would replace Perna with, but her passive is really good. Kiki, Attack break, which I already touched on, is really important. I think you need someone with attack break. I think that's going to help a lot. Defense break, of course. Everybody knows that defense break is good. She has a bunch of debuffs: glancing hit, reduced attack speed, block beneficial effect, which is good against the giant because he gets the attack power buff from the left crystal. So it's good for that fight. It's not really good for any of the other ones, but it is good for that one fight. Replacements for Kiki, I would consider Momo because she has the same skill 1 and skill 2, attack break and defense break. The passive is different. She can do really good damage because she gets up to 200% damage increase when people do damage. So the fights take a long time. That's usually where she does well. So I think she can definitely do well. She also takes 20% reduced damage. So keeping her alive is going to be easier than keeping other damage dealers alive. So that is a unit that I would consider. So main things, you need a reviver. Defense buffs, super helpful. Someone to kill the side towers is also super helpful, makes it easier. Attack break, defense break. If you can get it, you want to slow so that you can slow the boss and the side towers. So before we go into the bosses, the 2 swords on the right, you're going to click those. And these are some benefits that you can get throughout every single fight. The worst one, I think, is decreased cooldown. You're not going to be going through these waves very quickly unless they're the lower level waves, which doesn't matter. Anybody can clear those anyway. So this is the worst one in my opinion. The ones that I do not recommend are the branding for the same reason. These fights typically take a long time. Sorry, I had to grab a drink of water. My throat is kind of dry. So the fights take a long time, so branding for 3 turns is not going to matter that much. 3 turns are going to be gone in no time, and it's going to not really matter. So I do not think branding is very good. Glancing hit and crit resist serve the same purpose. If you're having trouble dying on the first attack from a boss, these 2 could help. That's the only reason you would want to choose one of these, is because you're getting killed immediately. If you're not getting killed immediately, you do not choose these. Harmful effect immunity, super good against certain bosses, like the dragon, because I believe the left crystal moves first, puts continuous damage on you, then the boss goes, puts more continuous damage, and does increasing damage based on how many continuous damage effects you have. So I think this one's really good. You could also use will runes, but I think 3 turns of immunity is just, it's kind of a buffer. It's really nice to have 3 turns rather than 1. If you have will runes, you actually get 4 turns of immunity, which is kind of interesting. So keep that in mind. The most important one here is remove harmful effects. You absolutely need this one. Pick this one. Trust me. You need it. It's not an option. This one's also extremely good. Recover your HP by 10% every time you get a turn. Fantastic. You get a Vioproc a couple times, 3 times, that's 30% HP. Fantastic. Enhanced type. I'm not sure how this works. The way that I think it works, what it says, is increases the stats of all ally monsters according to their type by 50%. So the way I think this works is, for example, Nigong is an HP type. You can see that on the middle of the top middle of the screen. It's going to say HP type right under my name. The way I think it works is it's going to give him 50% of his base HP, which would be 6,420. That would be an extra 6,420 HP for Nigong. That's the way that I think it works. The only problem is, I don't know how it would work for the support monsters. What stats do they get? Honestly, I don't know. The attack monsters, of course, would get attack. That's how I think it works. If you don't like this one, choose one of these ones. Or maybe go with the branding if you really want the branding. But I don't think choosing cool time is worth it. So now we're going to talk about how to kill each boss. The first boss, super easy. Just hit him. That's it. Hit him and kill him. The second boss, the giant, really helps to keep attack break on the boss. Really helps to keep defense buff on your units. Slow debuff is really good. As everybody knows, the giant is slow. The towers are slow. At least in this encounter. So slow debuff helps a lot. If you have a unit to kill the side towers, you're going to kill the side tower on the left. If you want to, you're going to kill the side tower on the right, and then you're going to kill the boss. The whole time you're doing that, when you're killing the side towers, you want to keep attack break on the boss. So whoever your attack breaker is, you're going to want to be using them on the boss. So you may have to manual the attack if you're doing it that way. However, as I mentioned before, I did have success autoing the boss and not killing the side towers. You can do it. But if you're having trouble surviving, kill the side towers left and then right and then the boss. Hall of Water. I think the best for this is to kill the left tower, the right tower, and then kill the boss. The left tower is annoying because it has HP recovery block. Sometimes the boss will stun you, so if you get a turn with that cleansing talent, if you want to call it a talent, this one, it might cleanse the stun, and then you're still heal blocked, and that can cause you to die. And the biggest problem with this boss is when you die, he gets another turn. And then if he kills someone else, he gets another turn. And then by 3 or 4 attacks, you're probably going to be your whole team's going to be dead. So you do not want to die on this boss, which is why I think getting rid of the HP block is important so that you can heal, because you do not want to die. So left tower, right tower, and the reason we kill the right tower is so that we can apply debuffs to the boss. We want to be able to apply that attack break because he does get more attack power as time goes on. So you want to get rid of immunity so that you can attack break him once he gets stronger. You can potentially glancing hit him. You can slow him so he's taking less turns. So left tower, right tower, all those reasons. Kill the towers, then kill the boss. For the dragon, same thing. Left tower, right tower, boss. The left tower does continuous damage. This is the biggest threat. The immunity, same thing as the last boss. You get rid of it, then you can attack break and do all that stuff to the dragon. Left tower, right tower, boss. Keeper of Light. This was one of the easier ones. He does have extra defense. He does have a defense buff. If you're having trouble killing him, kill the defense buff. Then he won't have as much defense. This right tower can do decent damage, so just be aware that it can hit for some decent damage. So you can kill it if you want to. I don't think it's necessary, but if you want to kill the right tower, you can kill it. The Ancient Guardian. For this boss, I just killed the boss. I think in the first wave I might have killed Amon, which is the guy on the right, the light guy on the right. I don't know if that was necessary or not, probably not, but I don't think killing the side guys is super important. But really, if you're bringing Amber, that's really her only purpose, so you might as well hit the side guys with Amber, because she's going to do almost nothing to the boss anyway, so you might as well try to kill him with Amber, if you have Amber. But I don't think it's necessary. Keeper of Darkness, there's a lot of continuous damage. Left tower, right tower, they both do continuous damage. The boss does continuous damage. So the main thing here, this is where the 3-turn immunity really helps, because you have a few more turns to kill the side towers. You're going to kill both towers, it doesn't matter which one first, because they do the same thing. Kill both towers, kill the boss. Hall of Magic. This guy, again, for me, felt very easy. The 2 light guys, the Hall of Light and the Hall of Magic, well, I don't know if he's really considered light, but this guy was actually pretty easy. He also has get an extra turn if someone dies. The inflict big damage to one enemy, in my experience, it was not big damage. It was actually not a lot of damage. I was expecting it to practically one-shot one of my units. That did not happen. Maybe you will have a different experience than me, but my experience is this does not do a lot of damage. HP recovery, you can kill it if you want, but if I remember correctly, this boss dies really quickly, so I don't know if it's necessary to kill the side towers. You can if you want. Same strategy as usual, except this one you're going to want to kill the right tower first, unless you really think the left tower is a threat. Leos. This is the main reason that we chose remove harmful effect when you get a turn, because Leos will freeze you through immunity. He can, at least, when he has the focus talent. So you want that to remove the freeze so that you do not get killed. Because if you're frozen and he has rage, he will kill you. Any unit that's frozen gets instantly killed regardless of how much HP they have, defense, doesn't matter. The main thing for this fight is you are going to save Alaya's skill 3, which is the one that cleanses, for when you have a unit that is frozen and he has the rage talent, because he's going to kill them if he gets a turn and they're frozen. So when he has rage and someone's frozen, you're going to cleanse. If that does not happen, if he has despair, or if your team is not frozen at all. If your team is not frozen at all, there's no reason to cleanse. You don't need the defense buff that much in this fight. You just need to not be frozen. So if no one's frozen, you're not using this skill ever. If he has the rage buff and someone's frozen, that is when you cleanse. Other than that, for this fight, you just hit the boss. It's going to take a while. He does have a lot of HP and defense, or at least it feels it. It's going to take a while, but make sure you're not frozen. That's the main thing for this fight. Try not to be frozen. And if you are frozen and he has rage, you need to cleanse it. Or if you have a unit like Nigong that has soul protection, you're going to want to put soul protection up immediately if you see that he has rage and someone's frozen, because you don't want them to die, especially the reviver himself. You want to make sure the reviver does not die, which actually happened to me, surprisingly. On this Leos fight, before I figured out that I needed to save my cleanse, I actually had Nigong die, and I had Amber die. Luckily, for me, I was able to kill Gojo, or Jogo, with only 3 units. I only had Alaya, Kiki, and Perna. The main thing for Jogo is you do not want to get continuous damage on you if you can avoid it, because he will ignore 10% of your defense per continuous damage applied. So the more continuous damage, the more damage he's going to do to you, because he's ignoring your defense. A lot of his skills, like this one, apply continuous damage. And he also has a passive that applies continuous damage. So you want to keep immunity up with Alaya as much as possible. You want to cleanse whenever you have an opportunity. And you want this skill, again, to remove harmful effects every time you get a turn. So this one, absolutely necessary. In my experience on the last boss, with only 3 units, it feels like it takes forever to kill this guy. I think Perna was dealing like 1,000 damage per hit, which is nothing. And this guy feels like he has 1,000,000 HP. So this fight took forever. However, the only one that ever got close to dying was Perna. She got to maybe 20 or 30%. And she does have a revive. So I don't think I was ever in a position where I was going to lose this fight. But it does feel like it takes forever. So all in all, in a nutshell, that is pretty much it. If you have any questions on what units I would suggest using, if you don't have any of the units that I went over, hit me up in the comments. Have any questions, hit me up in the comments. Again, I was not planning to get rank 45. I mean, the main motivation for me was that I saw not a lot of people had done it. So I thought, hey, let's see if we can do it. So we were lucky. We got it done. And I'm happy about that. So thank you for sticking with me for this long. If you stayed till the end, feel free to comment, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. I know I don't make a lot of videos, but when I do, I try to make them good. Appreciate it, guys. Thank you. Have a good day.